Hi everyone, I'm Zilla Blitz, and today we'll be taking a look at the Rock of Chickamauga from Flying Pig Games and designed by Hermann Luttmann. Now, this game covers the Battle of Chickamauga, and it is the sequel game to A Most Fearful Sacrifice, which covered the Battle of Gettysburg on a grand scale. Now, A Most Fearful Sacrifice was my personal game of the year in 2024, so I'm thrilled to be able to take a look at the Rock of Chickamauga. Also, Hermann Luttmann has reached out and wants to give away one designer-signed copy of the game to a lucky viewer. This is for our viewers with US mailing addresses only. Sorry to international viewers, but details on how to enter a chance to win a copy of the game are at the end of this video. As we look at the components, let's do a broad overview of the game. This is a two-player game covering all aspects of the 3 days of fighting in the Battle of Chickamauga in Georgia from September 18th to 20th, 1863. Gameplay length depends on the scenario. The shorter scenarios can take an hour, while the full 3-day historical campaign probably equates to the 3-day gameplay length listed on the back cover of the box. Historical length correlates with this, with smaller scenarios representing just a few hours of historical combat, and the full campaign representing the better part of 3 days of maneuver and fighting. Each turn in the game, as with the previous A Most Fearful Sacrifice, represents 1 hour of historical time, and scenarios can just be a few turns or massive over multiple days. 1 hex on the map represents 200 yards. Units are regiments and batteries, with each strength point on a counter representing roughly 100 men. Let's highlight some of the features of the Rock of Chickamauga. Let's start with the obvious. The Rock of Chickamauga is a large hex and counters Civil War game. There is 15 square feet of map here and 5 counter sheets, and this might make you feel like this is a monster game. Yet I'd actually call this, like A Most Fearful Sacrifice, as more of an epic treatment of the battle. The game comes with 16 scenarios, and most of them are small to medium scenarios that only use a portion of one map and are playable in 1 to 3 hours. So you can have hundreds of hours of gameplay with this game without ever playing the full 3-day scenario. There are even a couple of what-if scenarios included in the game. For aficionados of US Civil War games, the Rock of Chickamauga uses the Black Swan system that was used in A Most Fearful Sacrifice as well. This system is an offshoot of the Blind Sword system that has been modified to better handle larger Civil War battles. Now, gameplay is card-driven. Each turn, players will build a shared activation deck of cards, and then gameplay consists of unit and event activations that are triggered by drawing a card from the shared deck. All the elements of US Civil War combat are in the game. We've got infantry, cavalry, and artillery units. Leadership is modeled through the card and activation factors, not specific leader counters, and through also unit cohesion on a smaller scale. We've got the expected types of attacks as well. We've got fire combat, assault combat for close range combat, and artillery bombardments. And with respect to fire combat, we have a variety of weapon types modeled in the game for both infantry and artillery fire. Also tied to fire combat is a system of handling line of sight in the game. Now, as we'll see, this is a very woody map, so line of sight should play some interesting considerations in the combat. There is a wide range of morale and casualty statuses in Rock of Chickamauga. Units will break, skedaddle, panic, suffer casualties, and get depleted and battle-worn. On the flip side, units can rally and cycle back into action as the battle progresses. Units can also entrench in the game to improve their defensive capacity, and there are special night rules for the multi-day scenarios. Lastly, victory in the game depends on the scenario, with scenarios being a mix of hex control, victory hex control that would be, and casualties inflicted to determine a winner. Now, the Rock of Chickamauga comes with 2 booklets, the rule booklet and the scenario book. Let's take a look at the rule book first. This weighs in at 32 pages, but counting the intro material and the example of play at the end, the live matter ends up being just 27 pages. Now, a few thoughts on this. First, I really like the design and energy that's been put into this. This is a clean, colorful, and professional presentation. Lots of examples and great organization too. The other thing that I think needs to be said for this is that if you already know how to play A Most Fearful Sacrifice, you are 80 to 90% ready to play the Rock of Chickamauga. The 2 games use essentially the same system, so it's a great way to learn 2 games for the price of 1. Now, the last part I've add about this is that when I got A Most Fearful Sacrifice, I was a bit intimidated by the size of the rulebook and the game itself. And at that time, I generally had a lack of board gaming experience with the US Civil War. So all in all, I anticipated it was going to be a hard game for me to learn and would take me a long time, but I couldn't have been further from the truth. The clarity and organization of the rules and the elegance of the system made it much easier for me to learn than I anticipated. I was expecting that this system would be more like a 7 out of 10 on the complexity scale, but I honestly think that this is more like a 4 or a 4.5 out of 10 on the complexity scale. It's just not a super hard system to learn, and it is much easier than it looks. Solitaire-wise, I thought A Most Fearful Sacrifice was a splendid solitaire experience, and this looks to be identical to that. There are no solo rules or a bot to guide one side or the other, but the card deck-based activation system in the events make this a fantastic game for playing both sides against each other. I'd give this a 6.5 out of 10 on the solo scale. Our second booklet that comes with the game is the Scenarios booklet. Now this is big. There are 56 pages in this one with some promotional material at the end. Now the game includes 16 scenarios in all, and 2 of those 16 are what-if encounters. And this, I think, can't be stressed enough with both this game and A Most Fearful Sacrifice. There are lots of small and medium-sized scenarios in here that just use a portion of one map, provide an interesting gameplay experience, and can be finished in a single sitting. At a glance, there are only 3 large scenarios that use all the map surface in the game. So my main point is that I wouldn't let the game size scare you away, as there is tons of gameplay in here, even if you never get to the full 3-day larger scenarios. Let's take a look at the counters for a Rock of Chickamauga. Now, there were 5 sheets before I punched them and clipped them. 4 that contained the 352 13 by 16th inch unit counters, and then 1 sheet that we see here for the 176 5/8 of an inch unit markers. Now, I'm showing the counters here in the Cube for Me storage kit solution that I made for the game. One of the challenges with the Rock of Chickamauga is that the box is packed full. I mean, there is very little room in the box for counter storage. Now, these trays here are the super flat Cube for Me unit trays, and I was able to fit all the counters in the game into 5 of these trays, with 1 extra counter used for a lid. Now, with this solution, I can get everything back into the box with only a very slight lid lift. Now the bonus also with these super flat trays is that every unit is visible, as these all stack only 1 unit high in each tray. And for a game like this, where you're picking individual units for scenario setup, I think this will really save me a ton of time setting up the game. Now, this storage solution is available from Cube for Me, and if you use a link down in the video description below, you can get 5% off your order. And a disclaimer, I really like these trays, and they are also a channel sponsor. Now, one little caveat with this, I don't have the Kickstarter extras for the game, so I haven't explored how those might fit into the box. My general sense is that they will not fit into the box very well, in addition to what I've got right here. But back to our counters. All the unit counters are double-sided with a battle-worn side on the back side. And one of the things that surprised me with this system was how relatively straightforward it was to learn, and the counters reinforce that. There are only 2 numbers on most units. The left number is the unit strength, used for combat, and the right number is the unit cohesion, used for all morale-related activities. I really like the counter set in A Most Fearful Sacrifice, and these are similar quality. They're thick, easy to read, and a refined color palette that really pulls you into the Civil War. Very well done for the counters on the whole. Let's check out the player aids that come with the game. The first of these is the Scenario Setup Guide on this one side, and then the back side of this has the Orders of Battle for the game. Now, these show the army organizations and what corps and division are active in each scenario. We also have a victory point track here down at the bottom. Next, we have the 7 command displays, 4 for the Confederate forces and then 3 for the Union forces. This is where you put the division and corps cards that set your priorities for command orders. Lastly, we have 3 gameplay related aids. The first one here has a detailed sequence of play, and then all the terrain related information and miscellaneous tables like break tests and panic tests. The second and third game player aids are identical and contain the main combat results table here, and then the event table and the close fighting table on the back. Now, I really like the functionality and the clarity of the tables in A Most Fearful Sacrifice, and these seem equally as good. It's also great to see a main combat player aid for each player. So that's handy. That's so handy in a game of this nature. So kudos for adding duplicates here. The Rock of Chickamauga comes with 99 cards. In the Black Swan system, players follow a process to build a single deck before each turn and then draw cards to activate units and trigger events. There are generally speaking two types of cards that can be in a deck: activation cards and event cards. And here we're looking at some of the activation cards and command cards. For most of these, when a unit is drawn, you roll a 6-sided die to determine the effectiveness of the activation, and this simulates the vagaries of war, as some activations can be more effective than others. The other type of cards are the event cards. Each turn, players choose a number of key event cards that they can opt to enter into the deck, and then some cards are randomly entered. Now, these events, when they come at the right time, can often be incredibly helpful. Some allow you to conduct special attacks or mess up an opponent's attack or rally your troops more effectively. There are also two unique cards, the Fog of War and Friction of War, that add additional event possibilities or command chaos to the mix. It should also be noted that all of these cards are high-quality vinyl cards. Great to see, as they should be very durable and see lots of gameplay action. In another nice touch, the Rock of Chickamauga contains one set of dice for each player, so 6 dice in total. As Jack Reacher says, details matter, and this game gets it right. And now the maps. The Rock of Chickamauga comes with two 30-inch by 41-inch high-quality thick mounted maps that butt together to form this 60-inch by 41-inch full map that we can see here. Now, as a reminder, however, most of the scenarios will just use a portion of one map. A couple of scenarios have a smaller field of play that crosses 2 maps, and only the 3 biggest scenarios use the entirety of the field of play that we can see here. So to reiterate, there is a lot of gameplay in the box, even if you don't have the table space to set up both maps for the longer scenarios. Now, I considered the map for A Most Fearful Sacrifice to be one of the most beautiful maps in Wargaming, and the Rock of Chickamauga's map here has a very similar feel. There's just something about the color palette and range of greens that just draws in my attention. This is such an evocative and beautiful map. Another thing that jumps out to me here is the terrain. There are so many woods here. Now, I mean, based on this, I think the scenarios here have got to play out quite a bit differently from those in A Most Fearful Sacrifice. I mean, there are some densely packed woods in here, and I can't imagine artillery will be so effective or effective at all in these places. So I'm very curious to see how the gameplay is different in this game. Now, all the hexes here are slightly over 1 inch in size, which is greatly appreciated for those of us with fat fingers. Stacking in the game varies by the side. There are some edge cases, but in general, Union stacking is 25 strength points per hex, and Confederate forces stack at 20 points per hex. The greater stacking limit for the Union forces reflects a change in combat formations that gave the Union forces a denser combat force. Now, victory conditions, as I mentioned in the early part of the video, vary by the scenario, but they're fairly standard. Scenarios will have victory hexes they're looking to control, and casualties inflicted is often a second factor contributing to the scenario victory. And there we have it, a close look at the Rock of Chickamauga from Flying Pig Games and designed by Hermann Luttmann. This looks to be a brilliant addition to the Black Swan system of games. And now, let's give a designer-signed copy of the game away to one lucky winner. Apologies to international viewers, but the contest is only available to winners with a US shipping address. To enter the drawing, use the link in the video description below to the Google survey form, and this form will ask you a few simple questions about the Rock of Chickamauga. Answer those questions correctly and hit submit, and you'll be included in the drawing for a winner. The form does collect email addresses to restrict multiple entries, but I don't keep those email addresses after the contest is closed. Now, towards the end of October, I'll be posting some gameplay videos of this game, and the winner will be selected in the first of those. So watch for those videos to see if you win. I'll post a link here to that video once it's ready. But in the meantime, here's a link to the first video in our series of gameplay videos for A Most Fearful Sacrifice if you want to check out some gameplay from the Black Swan system. Thank you, everybody, for watching.